Many years ago, our children, our two boys, who were, they're adults now, but back then, our oldest was 5, our youngest was 3. They were sort of that toddler age. And if you've never had toddlers, you wouldn't necessarily know this. But in addition to sort of being the love of your life and the future and amazing, toddlers are tiny, evil little bastards. I was home. I'd had this horrible day at work. I was trying to prepare dinner for my kids. It was Lord of the Flies. They were throwing food. They wouldn't sit still. They wouldn't be quiet. And I was just about to lose it. And then at one point, my wife comes home from her day of work, and she's had an amazing day of work. And she walks up to me, like in the kitchen, and she throws her arms around me, and she gives me this kiss that just lingers for like 4 or 5 seconds. And if you've never had toddlers, you wouldn't know this, but if you have a kiss that lasts for 4 or 5 seconds with toddlers, like that is your sex for the week. That is, it is this incredible, amazing moment that you cherish. And so it is for that reason that I completely lost my cool to an inappropriate degree when our oldest son turned to our youngest son and said, "Hey, Finn, Mom and Dad are humping." And I was so angry, and I whirled around at him, and I said, "What did you say?" And my son, who, like, this is just my son, I said, "Mom and Dad are humping." And I'm like, "Where did you even hear that word?" And he said, "I heard it at school." And at this point, like, my wife, who's still in an embrace with me, my wife, by the way, can think many steps further ahead than I can into the future. She is saying into my ear, "You need to stop talking now." And I'm like, "No, I got this. I got this." And I say, do you know what humping means?" And he says, "No." And I say, "Okay, new house rule. If you don't know what a word means, you can't use it in the house." And because that's great parenting, right? Like I wrapped it up, bow, like it might as well be a sitcom. I did that so neatly. And it worked really well for about 24 hours. The next night, my wife and I are reading him a book for bed, and as we're wrapping up, he says, "Oh, I know what humping is now. I asked at school." And I'm like, to my wife, "No, he doesn't know. He doesn't know." So, okay, what do you think humping is? And my son says, "It's when a man takes his penis and he hits a girl on the stomach with it." And before my brain can catch up with my mouth, I hear myself saying the words, "No, that is foreplay." And my wife is, "What the?" And my son's eyes go big, and he's like, "What's foreplay?" So later that night, my wife and I, like, we're in bed and we're talking, and my wife says, "Now we have to give him the talk. He's only 5, but now we kind of have to do it." And I'm like, "Yeah, we probably do. Like, how should we do that?" And my wife is like, "Who's we, paleface? Like, this is, you dug this pit. He's a boy. You're a man. You need to take care of this." And I'm like, "Okay, I will do this." And the truth is, this is one of those moments in parenting that I have been looking forward to. Like, I thought it was going to happen like a decade later. But it was something that I had always wanted to nail. And the reason for that is when my own father gave me the birds and the bees talk, it was, so I'm 17 years old. I've been sexually active for a few years. My father sits me down and he says, "So I need to tell you something about sex, and this is all you really need to know." And I swear to God, this is verbatim what he tells me. "You're going to find when you get older, you get certain urges, And when you have them, you're going to want to act on them, but you're not married. So what you're going to want to do is when things get hot and heavy and you think you're going to cross the line, you imagine what it would be like the next morning brushing your teeth with her toothbrush, which is like the worst birds. First of all, I'm 17 years old. I would have brushed the shit out of my teeth with anybody's toothbrush at 17 if they would have had sex with me. But more than that, like, I might have been the most immature 17-year-old there had ever been. Yeah, I had been sexually active, but I wasn't taking precautions. I was never using protection. I just sort of assumed all that would work its way out. And years later, like, I want to say maybe 2 months before our first son was born, I was having a beer with my dad, and I was saying, do you remember the birds and the bees story you told me? Oh, yeah, with the toothbrush. Like, yeah, that was terrible. Like, I could have used, like, an adult person talking to me about sex, because I really needed that in my life. And my dad said, so here's what you're about to find out, because you're about to be a parent. Like, this is all parenting really is. You know, you want to be there for them. You do your best. But basically, when you're a parent, you say your piece, you send them out into the world, you cross your fingers, and you hope for the best. Like, that is terrible. Like, that is the worst parent. It's like, that is so lazy. That is the worst. And he was like, you know, I hope you do better than me. I really do. I hope you do. And so now I get to educate my child, and I get to stick at my dad in, like, one parenting moment. And this is great. So a friend of mine at work explains to me that if you go to the public library, they have a section in the kids section for, like, toddler age kids, books to teach them about sex, which is, like, healthy and so cool and a little bit creepy all rolled into one. And I go to the library and I pull them out, and I'm just sitting there in the kids section trying to find the one that's like, I'm like every parent's worst nightmare, in the kids section reading these books about sex until I find like 3 that I think will resonate with my son. And I go home. And that weekend, I say, don't go out, because we're going to sit down. We're going to have early book time. And I'm reading him the books. We're going through them. And I can tell almost immediately that, like, I am bombing. Like, it is just not resonating. You know the thing kids do when they sit on the couch and their legs just kind of at the knee go like this? Like they are bored. And, you know, that makes sense, because he's 5 years old. He's barely 5 years old. And the thing about sex is there's the physical mechanics of it, which are probably, like, way outside of his experience that he can comprehend. But even that, sexuality is something more than that. And trying to explain to a 5-year-old about sexuality is like trying to explain music to someone who's been deaf all their life, or colors to someone who's been blind. It's just, there's something about it that will never quite translate if you haven't had the experience before. And I'm losing him, and he's not paying attention, and I'm thinking, I'm blowing this, and finally it hits me. I'm going to give him this talk that I always wanted my parents to give me. And so I closed the book, and I said, okay, so here's the thing. Humping is a word for sex. Sex is this thing you do. You'll do it maybe with a guy, but you'll probably do it with a girl. It doesn't matter which one you do. We'll love you either way. You're going to love it. For some period of your time, it is going to be the most amazing thing in the world, because it feels like something you can't conceive of that is unbelievably wonderful. And there will be people out there that tell you it's wrong and it's bad, and don't listen to them. But here's the other thing. It comes with a responsibility. And at whatever age you seem to think I am now mature enough for this, you're not. And if you want to talk to us about that, we'll be here for you. And if you don't, if that makes you uncomfortable, find somebody else. Whenever you think you're ready, stop yourself. And when you do go ahead, remember that you are not just playing with your own future. You're playing with a woman's. And you're not just playing with her future. You could make some major changes in her life that will affect her far more than they will affect you. And it's even worse than that. Because if you do start having sex with girls at whatever age you are, you're going to get a lot of encouragement to do things. And one of the worst things is you're going to be encouraged to disrespect that person just because they had sex with you. And you should never view it like that. Sex is like, think of it as a gift. It's not really a gift, but if somebody decides to have, even if you both walk away thinking, we don't even like one another, it is something that they were willing to do with you, and you have to respect them, and you have to respect them for that. And you have to be there for them, and you have to have their back no matter what. I don't care if you like them or not afterwards. That is your responsibility. And if you tell them you're going to call them, it won't kill you to actually pick up the phone. And my son... My son raises his hand and says, I have a question. And that's just great, right? This is what I didn't have with my dad, the give and the take and the you ask and I answer. And I'm like, yeah, of course. What do you want to know? And he says, so humping is boring, and can I go outside and play? And, what do I say? I say, yes. Of course I say yes. Because this is what I've learned about parenting now that I've been a parent for over 20 years. You want to be there for them, and you do your best, but at the end of the day, I just gave it my best shot. I spoke from my heart. I sent him out into the world. I crossed my fingers, and I hope for the best. Thank you.